We have journalist Andy No on with us, a guy who probably knows more about Antifa than anybody else. He's got a new book that is coming out already, #1. They haven't silenced you yet? They got to change that, Andy. Already #1. It comes out in a couple of weeks. We'll have him on to talk about that here in a couple of weeks. But we wanted to talk to him about what happened yesterday in Seattle and Portland. Andy, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me on again.
Sure. So tell me what happened yesterday. Give me the story.
Well, given that we've been hearing over and over from the media about the threat of insurgency, particularly after what happened at Capitol Hill recently, you would think that this news would be blanketed across the national and international press. Unfortunately, it's not. What happened yesterday was in coordinated fashion. Antifa in different cities on the West Coast carried out mass riots and attacks. They did it in Portland and Seattle, as well as Denver to an extent. Portland was particularly bad because they came armed with weapons like knives, axe. There were Molotov cocktails. In the course of their rioting, they actually destroyed the headquarters of the Democratic Party of Oregon building.
See, that shows that was right-wing extremists that were disguised as Antifa.
Right.
Explain how that is a sign it's Antifa.
Well, okay, so when I get asked this all the time, which I frequently do by press who ask me, how do you know it's really Antifa? Well, you look at the groups that are organizing the riots on encrypted Telegram channels and Signal. You look at the Antifa accounts that are advertising on Twitter openly the riots and calling for people to come. You look at the symbols and flags that they carry. So yesterday they carried actually Antifa flags. And you also just listen to their chants. They were chanting Antifa, Antifa when they were in the middle of carrying out the riots. And then another thing, which is my specialty, is looking at who gets arrested and digging into their backgrounds and looking at their political posts. So all these come together, make it very, very clear, if you want to know the truth, that these are Antifa. Unfortunately, there's very few journalists who are curious when it comes to this, whereas they apply so much scrutiny to the people who were at the Capitol Hill, including people who had nothing to do with the riots, but were merely at a political rally earlier in the day. So, I just want to emphasize, how bad it was yesterday. It's become normal in these cities for marauding gangs of masked people to go out into the street with weapons and set things on fire, come with homemade explosives, come with knives, and they were picking up rocks along the way as well. There were multiple riots actually in Portland in the same day. Early in the day was the destruction of the Democrat headquarters, and then later at night they tried to break inside the ICE facility, but fortunately federal officers repelled them.
Wait. No. The press would have to report it if they went into, let's say, a courthouse or a federal office building where ICE was, because, we've learned that's the difference. They went after federal property, and they went after federal employees. So that was the difference, because that was what was happening in Washington. And apparently Antifa has never done that. So now you're saying that they did that last night, huh?
Yes, as they've done hundreds of times in 2020,
really?
Trying to burn down and attack federal property in downtown Portland, where and the response from the national media was to blame the law enforcement officers protecting federal property at the time.
All right, let me just show. And by the way, Andy, I'm not sure you get my sarcasm, but I'm not being sarcastic at all. Last night in Portland, they had a very important Joe Biden rallying cry, because they love Joe Biden. Listen to what they said.
So it should be clear that Joe Biden isn't going to save us. Because at this point, it doesn't matter who is in the White House. A dictator could care less, okay? And furthermore, Joe Biden, let me tell you about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a feckless puppet of the centrist Democratic establishment who is only president because of his ties to corporate interests, okay? Can we get that through our heads? I'm preaching to the choir, but here's a pill that might be a little harder for you to swallow, okay? So, progressive political actors like Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, they're not going to save you either, okay? And let me be clear, don't get me wrong. It's essential that we have strong progressives circulating the White House. But now, this is the people's fight, okay?
Andy.
This is the people's fight, because our political champions only have as much power as we imbue them with. And you see how much power white nationalists give Trump, okay? And they've got the guns to back it up.
What does that mean to you? What does this speech say to you?
It's laying the groundwork for radicalizing people for revolution. I mean, essentially, if you just listen to what they're saying, you read their literature, you look at their banners, they declare themselves to be ungovernable, and this is where the anarchist side of the anarchist communism comes out, and Antifa and their allies, is that they fundamentally reject everything about the United States, including the idea of American governance, period, including governance from the Democrats. So they recognize AOC and Bernie as important allies in the administration, in government, but when it comes to what they ultimately want, though, is to destroy the political system in the U.S., including both parties. This is what I've been talking about for years. So it's been very frustrating that the coverage in Antifa has become partisan and that the liberal media has given coverage to them so much, when these are people who are openly calling for Democrats to actually be killed.